This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. The new Pope is elected. The Queer God Squad has some queries. On the day that Pope Leo XIV was elected to the seat of St. Peter, Sunshine Cathedral's own Bishops Durrell and Robert, that's us, released a statement offering blessings and hopes for the new pontiff. The statement read in part, quote, Cardinal Robert Francis took the name Leo XIV. The new Pope is a Canon Lawyer, an Augustinian, a former church leader in Peru, and the first Pope ever from the United States. The last Pope Leo led the church from 1878 to 1903. His advocacy of workers' rights and his opposition to autocracy, as well as to laissez-faire capitalism, earned him the title, the unofficial title, the Workers' Pope. He believed that pastoral ministry was meant to be a vehicle for social justice. The bishops of Sunshine Cathedral hope that Leo XIV shares this commitment to justice, end quote. The statement also pointed out that in his blessing to the world from his balcony, quote, Pope Leo invoked the aid and intercessions of Saints Peter and Paul, faithful ministers who often did not see eye to eye, St. John the Baptizer, who risked great peril in speaking truth to power, and the Blessed Lady St. Mary, who stood with Jesus until his last breath, and then is said to have led the church in Jerusalem for a while. The bishops of Sunshine Cathedral hope that these invocations signal a desire to work ecumenically, a commitment to stand up to despotic leaders no matter the country they are from, and a willingness to stand firm in difficult times and offer hope in the wake of heartache, end quote. And of course, we as bishops called on the Bishop of Rome to be welcoming of LGBTQ people. In our statement, we said, quote, the bishops of Sunshine Cathedral further hope that Pope Leo will be at least as open to the LGBTQ plus community as Pope Francis was, and if he might dare to be even more welcoming and inclusive, we would certainly praise his efforts, end quote. It's worth mentioning that Leo is the fourth consecutive non-Italian pope and the second non-European. Moreover, while he is American-born, in 2015 he became a Peruvian citizen, making him the first pope from the United States and the second from South America. Let's see what the Queer God Squad thinks about these early days of a new pontificate. At first, I was a little discouraged because there were two or three people that I had on a list that were sort of known to be gay-friendly or gay-tolerant or are open to discussion about gay stuff, and he was not on that list. I don't remember ever being super mean about it, but I'm sort of a moderate, maybe slightly conservative-leaning moderate, and so I figured, okay, he's going to be good on what everyone's good on, and he's going to ignore or be bad on the gay thing. I don't know. But in these early days, I don't know that I was being fair. We'll see. He hasn't done much with it yet, but it's like a minute already, so we'll see. But what he has done has been to oppose when the U.S. leadership has been out of line, cruel, evil, wicked, unjust, oppressive. He's already called that out, some of it right before he was Pope. He was just a cardinal, but still using his authority. And since he seems to be, an advocate and ally of the poor and the on the right side of immigration. So he understands that it would be problematic for just tons of people to come into a country that didn't have the resources or infrastructure to take care of it. And he also understands that people's lives are at stake and they're desperate to be somewhere. And so he's calling for humane solutions that take all of that in consideration. We've got to save people, and each country can only do what it can do. But if we work together and think it through, that surely we can make sure every person is okay. So that's I like where he's going so far with that. He hasn't said anything that I know of yet, too much about queer stuff. And I assume that if he does, it'll probably be measured and careful. And but he spoke highly of his predecessor and his work. So I'm hoping he doesn't want to do too much to contradict or stop the flow of that. So we'll see. I'm more hopeful than I was in the beginning. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, you wasn't my first choice either. I first who are you? What are you? How did you get there? And I like how so far they are really working to humanize him a little bit. I don't know if you caught one of the clips they were playing when he called his brother. Yes. And the first thing he said was, well, why didn't you answer the phone? I've been calling you. Yeah, I've been calling you. Why didn't you answer your phone? But, it's less than 30 days. It's less than 60 days since, the former Pope died. There's a lot going on. So clearly, this is a honeymoon phase that's going on right now. Everybody's getting to know him. He's getting to know how it works from a different perspective. And he's been elected not just as the head of the Catholic Church, but as also head of state. And I keep looking through some of the lens of what will he do as head of state. Not so much head of the church, but what we do as head of state. Kind of both go one in one. And my hope is, and my faith is, trusting that his first 100 days will look greatly different than someone else's we know who had 100 days of activity. I hope that he will lead with compassion, that he will lead faithfully, that he will speak out, he will call things out, speaking to the people on the margins, challenging other world leaders to do right, and just calling them out. That's my hope.
If he has a measurable IQ, a beating heartbeat, and 46 chromosomes, he will do better than the first 100 days of that other fool you just mentioned.
Oh, I called nobody by name. I was just making a
I have to give Pope Francis one more kudu. He picked 80% of the cardinals that picked his successor. Now that's called planning forward. So hopefully the cardinal that he made in just 2023 is in that same mold. Yeah. I have a feeling that like the Catholic Church, he's going to move very slowly to get things done. I always point out that it took the Church almost 2 millennia to realize that Mary Magdalene was a decent human being. So don't expect super duper things to happen, but expect him, I think, to continue to move the church in a more positive direction for everyone, not just the least of us, but the least of us who happen to be LGBTQ. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where he moves this church.
In our lifetime, was the church finally admitted that recognizing that we have a heliocentric universe is not a heresy.
Yeah.
In our lifetime.
You mean didn't do it with Galileo?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
He
just got posthumously a clean slate in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with all of you. I'm hopeful that he will reach out and have greater outreach to the LGBTQ community. But my focus is on women.
Hey.
Where are women in the Roman Catholic Church? Will there be outreach to the women in the Roman Catholic Church? Will they be invited to participate in any of this? Or are they still going to be on the margins? That's a big focus for me and for about 53% of the population.
Right.
So yes, I'm hopeful and I'm really pleased that he's calling out certain leaders, and I hope that continues, and I hope that there is greater outreach to the LGBTQ community. That's got to happen. And include the women.
Yes.
Include the women.
Again, back to he will be Saint Pope Francis.
Yeah.
He put more women in charge of things than any of his predecessors. Now, of course, they were nuns or lay people.
Yeah.
Lay scholars and lay ministers and nuns, but still more women in charge of things in the Vatican than ever before. Now that's not stuff that gets in the news so much, so you might not even know it. I think it helps to know, so they should make. But maybe that was part of his plan to not make a big deal of it, so it gets done without a lot of challenge. But I've heard, now this is all just unofficial rumors, and people are wrong sometimes, but that the first light of possible hope of women in the diaconate will be this new pope. Now, that there might be one day before he dies a glimmer of hope, that's still not, a lot to hang your hat on.
That's the church.
But that the people are, would even imagine that that this is a thing that could happen. Yeah. And but that's how slowly that juggernaut of an institution moves.
It does move slowly, and steps, and steps.
And in the meantime, there's Protestantism.
Yeah.
Where we do things however we want to.